Emily Parker was a curious and imaginative 8-year-old with a knack for storytelling. Her parents, Laura and Michael, loved her deeply, but their busy lives often left them distracted and preoccupied. They lived in a charming but old Victorian house on the outskirts of town, a place filled with creaks and shadows that fueled Emily's active imagination. The house, with its high ceilings, ornate woodwork, and dimly lit hallways, had always intrigued Emily. She spent hours exploring its nooks and crannies, inventing tales of hidden treasures and secret passageways. But there was one place that always unnerved her: the attic. It wasn't just the attic itself, but what Emily believed was in the attic that scared her. One rainy afternoon, as Emily was playing with her dolls in the living room, she heard a faint scratching noise coming from above. She froze, her heart racing. The noise seemed to come from the attic. She had heard it before, but it was always faint and infrequent. This time it was persistent and unsettling. "Mom, Dad, did you hear that?" Emily called out, her voice trembling. Laura looked up from her laptop, barely registering Emily's words. "Hear what, sweetie?" "The noise. It's coming from the attic. It's scary." Michael glanced up from his newspaper and chuckled. "It's just the wind, Emily. Or maybe a squirrel. There's nothing to be afraid of." Emily frowned. She was certain it wasn't the wind or a squirrel. There was something in the attic, and it wanted to be heard. That night, as the rain tapped against her bedroom window, Emily struggled to fall asleep. Every creak of the house seemed amplified, every shadow more menacing. She pulled the covers over her head, trying to block out the sounds. But then she heard it again, the scratching. It was louder this time, more insistent. Terrified, Emily ran to her parents' bedroom and shook her mother's shoulder. "Mom, please, you have to listen. There's something in the attic." Laura sighed, groggy and annoyed. "Emily, it's late. Go back to bed. There's nothing up there." "But Mom, I'm scared," Emily pleaded. Michael rolled over, irritated. "Enough, Emily. You're too old for these silly fears. Go back to bed." Dejected and still frightened, Emily returned to her room. She lay awake for hours, listening to the scratching, her mind conjuring all sorts of terrifying images. Over the next few days, Emily's fear grew. She refused to go upstairs alone and would only play in the living room, far from the attic door. Her parents noticed her change in behavior but attributed it to a phase. They were too busy with work and household chores to pay much attention. One evening, Laura and Michael decided to have a dinner party with some friends. As they laughed and chatted in the dining room, Emily sat in the corner, clutching her favorite stuffed bear. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, something from the attic. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the room was plunged into darkness. The guests gasped, and Laura fumbled for a flashlight. When the lights came back on, Emily's heart sank. The scratching was louder than ever, echoing through the house. "Did you hear that?" one of the guests asked, his face pale. "It sounded like it was coming from the attic," another said. Laura forced a laugh. "It's just the old house settling. Nothing to worry about." But Emily knew better. She felt a cold chill run down her spine. There was something in the attic, and it was getting closer. That night, Emily couldn't take it anymore. While her parents slept, she grabbed a flashlight and tiptoed up the stairs to the attic. The scratching grew louder with each step, and her heart pounded in her chest. She reached the attic door and hesitated, her hand trembling on the doorknob. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open and shone the flashlight inside. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing old furniture, dusty boxes, and cobwebs. But then she saw it, a pair of glowing eyes staring back at her from the corner of the attic. Emily gasped and stumbled backward, dropping the flashlight. She turned to run, but the attic door slammed shut behind her. She screamed, pounding on the door, but no one heard her. The eyes moved closer, and she felt a cold, clammy hand grip her shoulder. "Emily, help me," a voice whispered, sending a shiver down her spine. Emily turned, her heart racing. There, standing before her, was a ghostly figure of a young girl, her face pale and eyes hollow. She looked sad and scared, just like Emily. "Who are you?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. "My name is Sarah. I used to live here a long time ago," the ghostly girl said. "I was trapped in the attic, just like you." "Trapped? Why?" "Because of them." Sarah pointed to the shadows moving in the corners of the attic. "They keep me here. They want you too." Emily's eyes widened in fear. She backed away, but the shadows closed in around her. She felt their cold touch, their whispers filling her mind. "No, leave me alone," she cried. Suddenly, the attic door burst open, and Michael and Laura rushed in, having heard Emily's screams. They saw their daughter cowering in the corner, surrounded by shadows. "Emily!" Laura shouted, running to her. The shadows vanished, and the attic was silent once more. Michael scooped Emily into his arms, and they hurried downstairs. "What happened?" Laura asked, her voice shaking. "There was a girl, a ghost. She said she was trapped," Emily sobbed. Michael and Laura exchanged worried glances. They had dismissed their daughter's fears for too long, but now they realized there was something very wrong with the house. The next day, they called a paranormal investigator to examine the attic. He confirmed their worst fears. The house was haunted by the spirit of a young girl named Sarah, who had died tragically many years ago. She was trapped by malevolent entities that fed on fear. The investigator performed a cleansing ritual, and the house felt lighter. The oppressive atmosphere lifted. Emily's parents apologized to her for not believing her, promising to be more attentive and understanding. Emily never heard the scratching again, and the ghostly figure of Sarah never appeared. But she would always remember the night she faced her fears and uncovered the dark secrets of the attic. From that day on, the Parkers lived a more peaceful life, cherishing their time together and always listening to each other's fears, no matter how small. They had learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes the things that scare us the most are the things we need to face head-on.